It's time to start the debate again. Better budget build, G-body or the Panther platform? Alright, hey, welcome back to the channel. I'm Grant Tommy. This is Straight Six Fan, your home for offbeat hot rodding, or once upon a time, as we let the folks come in. Hey, let's just drop the garage door. There we go. A little better lighting. Once upon a time, I used to always talk about how you build your hot rodding confidence for not a ton of money, or budget-minded, relatable, creative builds. Point is, I know how it is when I was like a kid and I wanted to jump into this hobby. You know, my number one priority was like saving for college, and so I basically just never got in until I was like age 33. But what I'm here to do is to help those prospective builders out there, people who want to get in, who don't have a ton of money, to help you figure out how to make decisions built around a budget. And so this time of year, in fact, last year I did a top 5 breakdown of what the best budget builds were of the last 5 years. And it wasn't by plan, but I wound up buying that 2003 Lincoln Town car. And so now I can actually I can evaluate myself, because I have number 2 on last year's list, the G-body, and number 1 on the list, the Panther platform. And so after having owned that now for 8-9 months, it's kind of time to just do a reflection, and I want to like really break down and see if I got it right. So who did the better budget build? Is it the G-body or is it the Panther platform? So let's hop in and let's discuss. Yeah, so if you can't tell, this episode's a little bit of the, did I get it right? Okay, so first off, I want to encourage everybody, if you haven't seen the mini-series from last year, the top 5 best budget builds of the last 5 years, I will be, of course, linking at least the G-body version one up here in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. But just some of the clips that I will pull in from that video is essentially what it is. I built these, what I call EA Sports, like player profile cards for each of the budget builds. I held them all to the same criteria, right? So like, how available is the platform on the market? And the entry budget price we were using was like saying, you've got, let's just say you have $3,400 cash in hand. So how available is that platform to begin with? How available are like used parts on, say, Facebook Marketplace? And then what kind of options can you do for performance, and then suspension and handling and brakes? So with that being said, for the sake of this video, of course, we will be holding my top 5 to the metric of my own cars. So this is a 1979 Pontiac Grand Prix, if you didn't know. And that was where we started. That is where the G-body scored the lowest, was the platform availability. So you have to be open to, all right, so you have to be open to the like second choice G-bodies. The Grand Prix definitely fits that bill. And one of the criteria that I always say in these budget build videos is like, I'm looking for the car you can go find that's running and driving. Like, it doesn't require that the prospective builder has access to a trailer. For whatever reason, you can find Cutlass is in good shape. They just don't seem to be running. But that's the biggest knock here on the G-body. Is really hard to find them in good shape, straight bodies at that price point, running and driving. And for whatever reason, it usually seems to be the Grand Am, the Grand Prix, Pontiac Bonnevilles, the 4-door Malibus even fit in this price range. So they're out there. All right, the second category we did was used parts availability, and slight nod to the Panther platform on that one. The problem was this category wasn't exactly a tit for tat category, if you will, because when I say used parts availability, I'm thinking almost where the Panther platform succeeds is like being able to find a donor parts car for like door panels, for, you know, body panels, for just parts like that. Whereas when I think about the G-body, when I think about used parts availability, I'm thinking about like, can I find a used intake manifold because somebody's upgrading their 305 Chevy to a different engine or something like that. So it's kind of a apples to oranges comparison, but I do still think that the Panther platform has a little more availability, like in the general sense. So I think what you'll find is by the end of this video, I think we may just kind of put a different perspective on what budget build might mean to you, the prospective viewer. So stick around to the end to find out what I mean by that. But I'm going to launch my drone here so we can get some B-roll, and then we'll hop into the town car. We'll finish up the final two categories. Alright, now that we're in the 03 Lincoln Town Car, it's time to go to the third and fourth criteria on the EA Sports player profile card. So, engine performance was the third criterion. This is by far and away the one where the G-body just runs away with it. Now, specific to my 79 Pontiac Grand Prix with the 301 Pontiac, there really aren't as many options, but, you know, some of those easy bolt-ons, right? Like an exhaust system, for instance. Pipes makes a really decently priced full system for the G-body, no matter what motor it comes with. Whereas, like the Lincoln Town Car, if I wanted to get a catback system, it's like $1,100 or something ridiculous like that, maybe more. Headers as well. Now, again, headers, 301 Pontiac, probably hard to track down. But just grand scheme of things, if you don't get one of those oddball motors like a 307 Oldsmobile or a 301 Pontiac and you end up with a 84 plus model, and you pretty much got a 305 Chevy, like, by far and away, the G-body is going to crush in that department compared to this. Now, I would say there's equal amounts of, like, opportunities for performance mods, but just the price point on the Panther is just ridiculous. But, you know, from a beginner standpoint, like a air intake tube is an easy bolt-on. But, you know, the equivalent on the 301 Pontiac's like a K&N air filter, right? A taller K&N air filter. So, again, it's easy to give this one to the G-body. Final criteria is handling and suspension, and ironically, I think the scorecard just shook out right. Slight advantage to the G-body, but I went ahead and priced out on both the popular I put together the cheapest package I could of beginner type mods for a suspension. And the great part is both of these cars have a 4-link rear suspension, so it's really easy to kind of do an apples-to-apples comparison there. So I put together packages of lower control arms, rear control arms, upper control arms, and sway bars, a rear sway bar. The price point difference from UMI compared to ADTR.net for both respective platforms was almost a wash. It was almost within a range that I would consider a wash. Like, I would say if you're within 5% of each other because of, like, shipping, you know, depending on what part of the country you're in compared to where you're buying from, I would consider it a wash, but it was more like 7, almost 8% difference between the two, so easily give the nod to the G-body. And then on top of that, I would say the G-body's just got a more vast catalog that you can build upon, and just, you know, for instance, like the lower control arms, you could get them. I priced out in the exercise the boxed version of both because that was the best apples to apples, but like UMI makes a tubular set of rear control arms which are a little cheaper, and so again, the G-body, you can run away with more options there. And then slightly, the one slight difference between the two was the rear sway bar on the Lincoln Town Car is set up and connects to the chassis, whereas the G-body, the stock location for rear sway bar is to the lower control arms. Now you can get a chassis mount rear sway bar for the G-body, but again, I'm thinking about this through the lens of a beginner. If you are just looking for ways to improve this car that you buy, you're not going to mess around with the chassis mount rear sway bar, so you're just going to mount to the stock location. So it's pretty easy to crown the champ, the G-body, here in this category. So we're going to go back to my garage and we're going to conclude this thing with my final thoughts. But I hope you've enjoyed the ride-alongs of both my cars. Okay, so in conclusion, first things first, I want to be transparent and say that I literally have the exact same amount of dollars wrapped up into both cars. I just happened to have bought the Lincoln Town Car at the price point of what I invested in this one, which is roughly around $6,400 to $6,700, somewhere in there. Kind of depends upon which spreadsheet you look at, I guess. But I'm tempted to crown the G-body the champ. I'm tempted to say I got it wrong last year. Now, the big qualifier there is, like we talked about, it's the availability of these things. It's getting harder and harder to find in good shape. And so it's like styling-wise, like a two-door, you're going to be cooler, right? Like in a two-door than the four-door. Like you only get four-door outside with the Panther platform. But the more and more I thought about it, I guess, and I'm always looking at this through my own personal lens, the way I grew up, always had this itch to hot rod. And so I think about it, if I'm a parent too, which I am, who wants to send their kid in a reliable car to high school and college, it's hard to beat the reliability of the Panther platform, right? So if you want something that you could just scale into, or and over the years, like modify, like, hey, we're going to do sway bars and lower control arms and really beef up that suspension this first year. It's a safer, more reliable car, right? Because you have the ABS brakes, you have an airbag system, whereas solid steering column over here and manual, no ABS. So there's one demographic of person that really that would have been the right car for me, ages 18 through 23. Now, say age 23, you're out of college, you have your first working job, you're throwing away some bucks, you're saving back some bucks, and you just want something cool that's going to win at a car show. That's the car for you. The potential to have a fast car is way higher in this than that. At a reasonable price point, I guess. You could, if money's no issue, you could throw a Coyote in one of those, right? But that's not what you're here, and that's what you're watching this video for. So, I guess ages 23 through 30 for me, that's the right build. So, if you have $6,400 to do something cool with, $6,700 to do something cool with, that'll be faster. But if I line both of my cars up, I'm sure that one would walk this one to the park, because this has 229 gears, 135 horsepower. We've got probably 327s, I think. I'd have to double check that, but 245 horsepower. So I've got essentially 110 horsepower on this thing. Yes, it's heavier. Four-wheel disc brakes. So again, I think it's just what are you showing up here looking for in a budget build? Are you someone who needs it as a daily driver? Boom, Panther platform. You just want to have a third car to tinker around with, win some trophies here and there at the car show? G-body, for sure. So I remember last year doing the series in the criteria, or the composite score, that one narrowly won. So I think it's a toss-up. I honestly think it's a toss-up. I'm almost tempted to say this should have been the number one budget build, but we'll stick with last year's results. It's going to be easier for you to find one of those all day and every day on your local Facebook Marketplace. But I hope you enjoyed it. I want to hear from you. Did I get it wrong? I know I got it wrong. Tell me why I got it wrong in the comments. And I just got to say, to all Mystics fans out there, thanks for watching.